Yo, I follow God cause he bringing out the best in me. And plus I'm trying to rest in peace before I rest in peace. He giving life, I'm making sure there ain't no death in me. Listening to God, I'm making sure there ain't no death in me. The devil claiming that he really is a large guy, but I ain't buying.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to The Time Is Right. My name is Scott Smith and I'm your host here on The Time Is Right. This is a podcast of Ripe Creatives, which is a ministry based in the great city of Philadelphia that leverages the arts for the purpose of missions. Here on this podcast, we do something super unique where we go back in time to discuss events that happened within our Ripe community. Sometimes we're talking about events where we got booked to go somewhere else. Every once in a while, we're talking about events that we actually produced here in the city of Philadelphia. And today is one of those latter situations where we're talking about one of our own events, a Creatives Philly event. You probably heard about Creatives Philly if you spent any time on this podcast, because I would say probably a third of the podcast episodes we shoot are about our own events. And this one was super unique. It was on November 12th, Tuesday night, 2024. And we did a Creatives Cafe open mic event at a place called Bedrock. There's a whole bunch to this story leading up to us doing this show, why we did this show there, how that all transpired, what the event was like. And it's a great, great story. Specifically to break this thing down, I got a couple of guests. Number one is not a guest. He's really the co-host of this podcast. He's on the majority of episodes. He also produces the podcast, records it, releases it, edits it, all the things. Top Mop, Jarrett Moses. What's good?
What's good? We almost need to not even do the introductions anymore because I am here most of the time.
Well, you're here all of the time, but you're not on all of the time.
Yeah.
It's like 80%.
Yeah.
When it becomes 90%, then you're just an automatic host.
We could almost get to the point where I just get a mic every time, and if I make a funny little comment, I make the comment. We've had a couple of these episodes. I was not at them, but they were like, just put Jarrett on.
Hey, Jarrett has good things to say.
I didn't, but I was there.
Shout out to Top Mop Moses. Listen, he's a good time. And he has a lot to say about this particular episode because Creatives Philly is really his passion. He's been the driving force behind a lot of our Creatives events over the last few years.
Love him.
So it's going to be a good time with Jarrett. We also got a first-time guest on the podcast today, y'all. First timer.
It took forever to get him on.
He's been a part of the Right family for a minute, but this is his first time on a episode.
We say it about everybody. They could have been on 100 episodes, but we're going to say it again. He could have been on 100 episodes before now.
I mean, there's only been 50 episodes, but he could have been on, I would say, about 10. About 10 of the episodes that we've done over the years. This man could have been a part of. He's been in Ripe Worship as a vocalist and a keyboard player.
Yes, sir.
He actually was a part of the Penn State show that we did at Penn State. The Ripe Takeover. Because he was on the band for that, John.
And the man's been on the Creatives band.
He's been in the Creatives band as well. But he has more recently become an artist in his own right, gospel artist, doing the thing. He's traveling around singing the songs, and it's been amazing. But he was on this particular Creatives as the closing incognito feature. Mr. El-Fatih Chase.
What's up, what's up, what's up?
Welcome to The Time Is Right, baby. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm chilling. It's good to hang with the guys and just finally be a part of this podcast. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And yeah.
That's love, man. Something you have to do as a first-time guest, we all know who you are. Anybody in our community that's listening to this podcast just got really excited to hear your voice on it. But for folks who are listening to this podcast from, across the country, across the world, don't know who you are. It's your first time on the pod.
Yep.
Can you give a longer intro? Who are you? What do you do? And then, we can talk about how you got connected to Ripe.
Yeah. So, as Scott said, my name is El. My whole name is El-Fatih Chase. But yeah, I am an artist that should probably be doing more. I live in the Philadelphia area, and my occupation is a social worker. So yeah, I try to get into a little bit more music, but I operate and kind of function more in music in my church and in the worship setting. But yeah, I'm here.
El, how did you actually get connected to Ripe stuff?
So that's really a good question. So I got connected when I was in college, and I remember my friend Olivia, shout out to Olivia, she was telling me about this organization that was doing music, and it was really open for creatives. And I was like, okay, well, let me try to go to this creatives event. I think it was like 3 years ago. And I was like, well, no, maybe a little longer than 3 years ago.
It was probably 4. Yeah,
maybe 4 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. She was like, yo, El, you should come to this event at Highpointe Church. And it's like a creatives event. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, I'll come, whatever. And I went, and I was like, whoa, like, this is a really cool vibe. Like, there's so many, like, young people my age, just so many creative, like, people with spoken word and music and, like, abilities out of this world. So it was about, like, 4 years ago, and I went, and then I put my name in the hat, or the little bucket thingamajiggy.
Did you get selected?
I think so.
You performed at Creatives back then? I don't think I realized
Highpoint, I did, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think I realized that until right now.
Yeah, I definitely performed at Highpoint. And Liv was just like, I'll just go up there and be SL, because I was nervous, because I had just learned how to play guitar. And she was like, here, grab my guitar. I was like, girl, I just learned.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I ever realized that was you.
Yeah.
I think I know what event you're talking about. And I remember you, but I didn't like put 2 and 2 together that that was you, El-Fatih, then.
Yeah. And I had, what song did I do? It was a song, I forgot the name of the people, but it was like, oh, take me as I am. And they were like, woo!
Yeah, I remember that vividly. That's so funny, because I was thinking we met after that. That you started coming to family nights through Mike and Liv.
Yeah, so that happened, and then I started coming to family nights. And then just kind of just vibing, like kind of like I think I was just invited. I don't think Scott knew who I was at the time.
Yeah, you were coming to my house. I was like,
just popping up.
Who's this dude? Nah, it was great.
But then I think when I started to develop a relationship with like the Ripe community, that's when things kind of started unfolding, and I became like really close-knit with everyone.
And with Emily as well, especially as she was leading Ripe Worship. And then Mike and Liv becoming, co-leaders in Ripe Worship alongside of SD and Pre, building relationships across the board. And then as you got connected to your new church, City Reach, because you were with us for a while you were at your previous church before you made the transition to City Reach. And I think I remember vividly like us praying for you at a family night one night when you were considering making a transition out of your church and not really knowing what the future was going to hold. And to think about where you've come from that to now in just a couple short years, like leading worship at conferences of, a couple thousand people and everything. No voice
at all.
It's crazy just to think about how much God has done in your life over the last couple of years, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's great to have you, man. It's been a long time coming to have El-Fatih on one of these episodes. Jarrett, before we get into like the actual night of the event, El's set and everything at Creatives, I think it's worth just kind of talking about this story of Bedrock. Because this is a crazy situation that just happened for us. So from, 2018 until 2021, whenever we met El, we were operating our Creatives events out of a place called Highpointe Performance Venue. I think all the way up until 2022, actually. And then in October of 2022, Highpointe shut down, sadly. Their cafe shut down. It was a perfect situation for us as Ripe Creatives, as Creatives Philly, as a platform for years and years. But we moved to the Story Factory, as well as a place called Venice Island Performing Arts Center. And we've been at those two locations for the last few years. And as amazing as it's been, one of the biggest challenges for us has been the Story Factory is so big. Like it's a Highpointe seated about 100. The Story Factory seats like 300, 350. So it's triple the size. And for us as a Tuesday night open mic event that's supposed to be a good vibe and, you know, great artistry, but really be intimate for people to connect and build relationship, the Story Factory is like too big for what we do. And so we've like worked our tails off to try to grow into it. But the reality is, if you look at our metrics, like we have 100 people every Tuesday that we throw an event for 5 years straight. Like that's just what we have. It's always different people. It might be 20, 30 different new people every time, but it's always about 100 people. And so for us to be like beating our heads against the wall trying to fill a 350 person space, I think has been challenging, specifically for the open mic events. Now for concerts and galleries, it's great because we can pull a lot more people for a big concert. We can pull a lot more people for a big gallery with a big visual artist that's going to fill the space with 30 pieces of art over the course of like an evening. But for the open mic, it's always been about 100. And yeah, what about from your perspective there, Jack?
I think speaking of the whole, like, it's easier to pull for a concert. I think it's easier to pull for a concert because people know who they're about to see.
Right.
It's easier to get a performer for an open mic. It's harder to get a viewer for open mic, if that makes sense. Like someone who's not trying to get on that stage and perform, we've seen like it's not always easy to get someone out to just watch. We'll tell people you never know what you're going to get. And so they come out and they're taking a gamble on whether or not they're about to enjoy their next 2-3 hours.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our open mic's really good.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's not
yeah.
even to say like that, but like if you haven't been to an open mic, especially one of our open mics, like
yeah,
you're obviously going to have more questions.
Yeah,
on
open mic gives off of a particular idea in people's heads.
Yeah.
That's not what our event is. Like our event almost functions like a showcase as an open mic because the talent is there.
They think like you're going to get some 16-year-old singing Taylor Swift covers.
Yes. Yeah. Facts. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably par for the course, you know. And an open mic night is a great way for people to cut their teeth and stuff like that.
Yeah. We get a lot of people trying things out for the first time. But also with the venue side, like you were saying, we hit about 100 people, and I think creatives, we always make reference that like Highpointe was the perfect place for us. And I think it's because our vibe has always been more of like a jazz club, like a small performance area that just sounds good, is built good. And I think that vibe, it's not that it's more welcoming, it just feels less intimidating than a big space like Story Factory, especially for a performer.
It's like more communal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's like a close knit community. It's like to the point where like you don't, like you're kind of forced to be with forced to be close knit, but with the Story Factory, you kind of can isolate yourself in the corner and stuff like that. And, you know, it's a lot more room. And I feel like the close knit, like community vibe, it's definitely like better.
It's definitely more us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It might not even necessarily be better or worse. They are significantly different, but one fits our DNA and one does not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think what we built creatives off of going back to 2018 was a vision of a Tuesday night event that was not an end-all be-all. It was a trampoline and a networking space for artists and creatives to meet, aka for somebody like Mike and Liv to say, hey, our friend El-Fatih, come out to this event and be around a bunch of artists and creative people. And, you know, 3 years later, your life might be totally different, right? What yours is. Like, how much have you grown since night one of creatives where you came out as a random outsider? But if your first touch with creatives had been at the Story Factory with a bigger stage, bigger lights, a little bit more dramatic of an aesthetic,
I think
maybe
like
you
Jared
don't
said,
sign up, right? For one, maybe
it's
you're
more
like,
intimidating.
it is.
Yep.
And then secondly, maybe you don't get connected because everybody's kind of all around the building and scattered out. So I think like that's what we've been missing. As much as we have loved the Story Factory,
And we still do
has
love
been a
it
challenge.
for the right show.
for concerts and galleries, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But for the open mic space, I think finding a new home for the open mic has been a goal. Now, we have not been able to find that space for the last couple of years. Like, where could our open mic really live? Yeah. And so we've been primarily focused on the outdoor open mics at Creatives Pier at Venice Island. Just did an episode earlier in the season about that with Mike Weatherby. But something happened in the summer with one of our artists in Ripe. Shout out to Graham, who you'll actually meet on the next episode. So Graham and Abby, Wind and Sail, they did a show with a band called Lovekin, which if you haven't heard of Lovekin, definitely worth looking up. Amazing singer-songwriter, storyteller, artist, just fantastic. Traveled the whole country, doing tours and stuff. Really, really talented artists. They came to Philadelphia. They were looking for a place to do a show. They ended up doing it at Bedrock, and then Graham and Abby from Wind and Sail opened for Lovekin at Bedrock. And the way Graham tells the story, which I heard from Pastor Drew, shout out to Pastor Drew at Bedrock, was Graham started a conversation with Pastor Drew and basically was like, hey, you know, what prompted you to do this show? You know, like, what is this space? This is cool. And Drew was like, yeah, this is our church. Like, we are in Fishtown. We're in a community that's very artsy and entertainment based. And we just feel like shows could be a way for us to connect and meet our neighbors. And Graham was like, oh, that sounds cool. Have you ever heard of Ripe Creatives? Have you ever heard of Creatives Philly? Have you ever met Scott Smith? And Drew was like, no. And then Graham called me and said the same thing. Like, hey, I think this could be a really cool space. Sent me pictures of it. And the way I treat things is like, if somebody in our community is like, hey, you should go check this out, I just do it. Like, no questions asked. And even more than the space is great. Way more than the space, though, is Drew. Like, I met with Pastor Drew. We sat down. We had conversations. We texted. We called. Like, we built a friendship, a real connection and an understanding of one another. And when I realized the mission for Bedrock was not, hey, we want a cool thing to happen in our space. It was, we want an intentional thing to happen in our space so that we can invite our neighborhood to it. I was like, this might be a match made in heaven. Because we know we can throw a great show. We know we can do a great open mic. We know we have great artists in our community that are going to want to perform, and random Joe Schmoes that come to our events that are great. But the outcome piece is really important to us. Like, how do we make this event matter than more just the night of? And that is there a place we can point people to connect if they've been impacted by it? And I think this Drew thing was really significant. So we've been talking with Pastor Drew about doing all of 2025 with him, but November 12th, 2024 was kind of our pilot event. Let's rock out in November and see how this goes, see if this feels right to them, see if it feels right to us, and see what that is. You got a chance to meet Pastor Drew, Jarrett, and some of the people from his team. What'd you think?
Yeah, I did, because I went out with you one time, I think, before the open mic that actually happened. Meeting with him was cool, like, just getting to chat with him. I knew a couple other people in the building, and he actually knew one or two of them because they rent out of this giant building full of studios, full of creative people trying to do their own thing through arts and, like, small businesses. So it's in the heart of what Fishtown is, which is just young businessmen and women trying to make it by. And getting connected with him was really cool. They fit right in with the energy of that building and the area they're in. Young men and women trying to find their way. And what better place to find your way than in a church, in a space like that? And like you said, his energy and his vibe was very much one that fit with what we want to do. He saw the ministry potential, and even with any, like, caveats, I guess, of what can happen at our events, they were willing to give us a chance, and they were willing to work with us, because they even came out to one of our open mics over the summer at the pier at Venice Island, and they liked what they saw, I think, and they were all for us doing it there, no holds bar.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had concerns.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, they definitely had risks, right? Like, associated with doing the open mic the way that we do it. Because even though we're all believers, we allow anybody to perform an open mic.
I was about to say that, yep.
You know, like, because it's an intentional outreach for us. And we typically do them in third space venues like cafes, or, you know, in a place like Venice Island, which is a venue. Like, we don't typically do them in a church space. But Bedrock, in my view, similar to Highpointe, though it was a church, it doesn't look like a church.
No.
It looks like a venue,
Yes.
right? Bedrock looks like a studio venue space that like any business would rent and use. It doesn't look like a Sunday morning church building at all, which is similar to the way Highpointe looked for an outsider coming in. And so, I was like, man, this looks good. But Bedrock had concerns about like, hey, the way you guys do your events, like, what is that going to feel like for us as a church if somebody comes up on a microphone in our technical church and does something that's a little bit crazy? Like, what does that feel like for us as a church? And he also, like, as he said that, he said, but that's not on you guys to change that, because the model is brilliant. And the way you guys are engaging in mission and ministry with these people is like, you should never change that. We just need to make sure that we vibe with it. Like, as a church, are we comfortable with taking this risk to have you in our space?
Yeah, because, their name is attached to it, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So they came to our event, vetted it, like you said, Jarrett, and they were like, okay, like, we'll see what this feels like. Now, going into November 12th, as a pilot event, first time doing it, I was like, I do want to, like, couple what we do in excellence with trying to mitigate some of the risk. And my thinking was, man, I think we should have El close this event. In part because El is not just an artist, he's like a gospel worshiper artist, right?
Yeah.
So there's like an overtness to your ministry as an artist that is like, it's a vertical worship kind of moment.
Yeah.
Even more so than like, I'm a singer-songwriter vibe, or I'm a hip-hop artist, or I'm a poet that you can connect with that's more horizontal. Like, you're a worshiper through and through. And my thinking was, okay, no matter how reckless the open mic might get, at least we'll end with El, who's going to take us up to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in a worship moment.
Great I am.
That will feel different than most of our open mic spaces. So that was kind of my thinking. El, from your perspective though, what was your response to getting the ask to be the closing incognito feature at a Creatives?
Yeah, honestly, so when you first asked me, like, I'm always nervous when somebody asks me, like, yo, can you come to this event? Can you sing at this event? In the back of my head, I'm just like, no. But then I'm just like, El, like, this is an opportunity for you, man. Like, this is an opportunity not for people just to see you, but to see the God in you, So when I was asked, I was just like, you know what? This is me being obedient to the Lord. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put myself out there, of course, after a million conversations with Mike and Liv and them like pumping and priming me.
No one better to get you ready for a Creatives event than Mike and Liv, honestly.
Shout out to Mike.
No,
and Liv.
Mike and Liv, honestly, like, if I tell Liv something, me and Liv are like, I don't want to do it, Liv. And then she's like, no, you're going to do it. And then Liv was like, bro, like, I don't know how I feel about this song. I'm like, oh no, Liv, you're going to do it.
You would probably do the same thing for her concert.
Oh, absolutely. Before. And she was just like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I was like, Liv, you're going to sing it.
You better
and I
sing,
told
girl.
Liv, I was just like, I don't know if I should do this creative thing. She was just like, oh, I'm not playing with you. She's like, you're going to get your butt up there and you're going to sing for the glory and honor of God. I was like, all right, you got it, sis. My fault.
Yeah. No, I think it was perfect. And we'll get into, why we thought that was the case at the end of all of it. But it was an amazing night overall. Our open mic is super unique. We talk about this on any of our open mics. It's cross genre. So we have people from, the hip hop side to instrumentalist side to poetry side to, singer songwriters. We've had dancers, we've had a lot of different things on our open mic, and this was no exception. At Creatives, the opening incognito, just want to shout out Caitlin Deviney real quick.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Having Caitlin back, Caitlin was a part of a duo called Homestead Collective for a long time. They actually had a venue called the Homestead in Glenside that shut down during the pandemic. Boo pandemic. It was a beautiful space. We actually did one of our prior second or third, maybe our fourth Creatives event ever was at the Homestead.
It was like January, February 2020.
February 2020.
Right before.
Yeah, like a month before. But Caitlin has been family. Caitlin's one of our partners in ministry, somebody that we value a ton. I've actually known her since she was like 13, 14 years old. And she has kind of set the guitar and the songwriting stuff publicly down over the last few years while she manages a coffee shop. And I think God has been pricking her heart to pick it back up again. We were kind of her coming back party on the low. It was kind of like trying to coax her into like doing this again. And I'm so glad she came. She was actually supposed to be on one of the piers and got sick. And she came to this one instead. And she just killed it. She set the night off so well.
She sounded amazing. And I don't know if this is getting ahead, but it felt like a homecoming to me. Like one of my first couple things with creatives, like Homestead Collective, was a part of it. Her being up there again, hearing her singing and playing the guitar, I was like, yo, it's like we're back at Highpointe. Like we're in my mind, I'm like, we're back in our prime. We're back. Like that's what I kept thinking all night as soon as she went up.
I was gonna say, like, honestly, the whole experience felt like a Highpointe experience. Like it was really kind of what I was saying before. Like it was really close knit, and it was almost like we were all family in that joint. Like we supported every artist that went up.
Yeah, Caitlin killed it. Shout out to Caitlin for opening things up, and it was just such a joy to see her back in her element. And she actually spent even a couple minutes with me at the end of the night, just kind of talking about how proud she is of us for still doing it. We should, like she was speaking to how many people have great ideas, start things, and don't stay consistent. And I think that's something that I can forget just because we continue to do the things that we've been doing for years and years. Like we don't know the benefit of that long term. But that was encouraging to hear. So shout out to Caitlin. After Caitlin, we had a whole bunch of open micers. I would just love to hear if you guys had any highlights. We're going to camp out on AVG for a minute. But AVG was not on the open mic, okay? He was an incognito feature.
Not the same.
And a halfway point. So we'll talk about AVG, but any of the open mic performances that stuck out to you guys?
One really cool one was Shane, I think was his name. He had come out to Pier, and I was like, oh, that's cool. He killed it at Pier, but then seeing him there again, I was like, oh, okay. Like I always wonder how much people like what they see and hear at these events, and whenever any artist like comes back around, it just makes me happy because I'm like, we're doing something right, especially when it's as drastic of a move as it was going from Manayunk to Fishtown. Seeing him follow us from there, I was like, this is a great sign to me.
Yeah, shout out to Shane. I mean, that dude can sing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. He has got vocal chops on him. And shout out to him for winning the lottery twice. Getting his name pulled. He's been to 2 events. His name's been pulled at both. So shout out to him for
100% success rate. For him.
That's a high lottery success. One I want to highlight is Ambition the Poet. I ran into Ambition at a place called Open Heart Poetry in New Jersey a couple months before this event. I hadn't seen Ambition in years. And he was somebody that used to be kind of around the Philly circuit quite a bit. He's now a pastor. He's preaching and teaching, but he's also an amazing poet. For a long time, he went by the foster child poet because he did a lot of pieces about social work and about the foster care system and about his own story going through foster care and adoption and all that kind of stuff. So just an amazing, like, social activist poet. And I hadn't seen him in years until a couple minutes before this event. And, he saw what we were up to and he came to the next one. And he ended up getting selected in the lottery. And it was just great to see Ambition the Poet do his thing again.
Yeah, I would say the highlight of the night for me was David Silver. Oh, man. When I tell you, I was like, oh, Uncle Dave up there, Doc. He got up there and he shocked all of us.
David J. Silver.
David J. Silver.
Don't forget that J.
Okay, put some respect on his name. But when he got up there, I think everybody had thought, I was like, oh, okay, this older guy is getting up here.
Yeah, you gotta paint the picture because people don't know who David J. Silver is.
All right, so David J. Silver, just imagine this older guy getting up there.
How old are we talking now?
I think this man, he had to be maybe in his 60s, maybe 70s.
I thought he said something about 70, but I could be wrong.
He got to be in the 70s, right?
I think.
He's not 60, bro.
No, maybe he was in
You're
his
being
70s.
nice.
Okay. Well, maybe he was in his 70s and like he gets up there and like he just tells his story.
He's testifying.
Like he's literally testifying. And I'm like, oh my God, is this man a minister? Is he up here doing like a spoken word? And then like hits the track and like he starts snapping. And then like everybody starts standing. I was like, oh, like it was so cool.
He was singing. He was singing.
And then he hit like a couple falsetto notes. I was like, oh, hold on, Pop. Like, hold on, Doc. It's just like, he was really good. He had some vocals. You can definitely tell like back in his day, he was definitely passing out his CDs.
You can't forget, like one of the funniest things, one of the only times ever in Creative's history, the man gets up there and he says, "I don't want the band to play."
No, he was pretty aggressive. He definitely
he's like,
like,
"Man, chill.
Don't play. I can't hear my track."
The band still played.
They waited until the end.
Our band was like,
they waited until the end.
Yeah.
Although I did see David Silver at another event, and he was like, "No, I love the band. I want the band, but I can't hear my track when the band plays, so I lose where I am." He loved it how they came in at the end, though. He had fun with that.
If this video does not go viral, I will be so surprised because it was one of the best moments like in Creative's history.
No, literally.
It was so beautiful. Like the entire room was on their feet.
Yeah.
Going nuts for him and just screaming and yelling and celebrating the moment. And he was just like, ah! Like somebody said it was like an America's Got Talent moment.
Yeah.
Yo.
Oh
like
my God.
That's what it felt like.
Actually, that's a good example.
Like that, it was like, whenever you see that person you don't expect to just kill it, like that was David J. Silver. And I think like everybody had somewhat low expectations when he stepped up on the mic. Like, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
Like this would be adorable or cute or something. But man, he wrote it out. He took the room by like sheer passion and force. Literally. And people were really moved by it. It wasn't just like cool to watch. It was impactful.
It wasn't just grandpa singing his song. Like it was, people were into the song. It was a good song.
Yeah, it was something just encouraging about like the way he performed, and I would even say like ministered. That was kind of like a new perspective for me too. Like, it showed that with music, sometimes age is nothing but a number.
Facts.
Like you can, as long as you have breath in your body, you can go out here and go to open mics and people really enjoy the music that you've written. I don't know. It's just like a perspective change for me. Like, like just go.
Never too late, never too early.
Never too late, never too early.
It's always on time.
Yeah, that's a word.
I will say there was another one that just made me happy to see. This guy Andrew Narvaez, AJ, he's friends with my roommates, and like we've become friends because of that. He'll come and like play house shows, sometimes just come over and record something with one of my roommates, and just hanging out and chatting with him. I've wanted to get him at one of these. I've been inviting him and some of his friends, and it's always just, it's either too far or it's just a bad night. And seeing him able to make it out and actually get on the open mic just made me so happy, because I keep hearing about how he's hungry to be around Christian creatives, people who have faith, people who are using their artistry to work with their faith. That's something he's trying to press himself. And he got pulled for hip hop. He will attest to this. He's a better singer-songwriter, and I can't wait to see him on Creatives doing that, because he is solid. Like he did great for his song, but he is even better if you throw him up there with a guitar. His passion when he's singing and getting into his performance is amazing, and he's a good representation of the type of artist you're going to get moving to Fishtown. And it just makes me happy and excited for the new people we're going to reach.
Shout out to Andrew Narvaez. He killed it. I know it wasn't his genre of choice, but I still think he did a great job. And his energy was on 1,000.
Yes.
A lot of people really rocked out with him. And yeah, just even him saying like, he's been looking for like what Creatives represents, I think is, he's somebody we're definitely going to be connecting with in the months and years ahead. I just want to shout out Craig Watson. I feel like we've been talking about Craig Watson on a lot of these shows, a lot of these events recently, but we threw him up there kind of as a spotlight because this open mic is a few weeks before his concert, Cobill. And so we just threw him up kind of last minute as like give people a taste of what the show would be a few weeks later for his concert. But Craig is just on 1,000.
Like his trend, like his story and testimony and his like transformation, like is crazy. And I always tell him that. I know he probably thinks I'm crazy, but every time I see him, I'm like, bro, like your testimony and your change is crazy. Like I remember seeing him at Venice Island.
Yeah,
he did Venice. He's been at all
Venice
locations.
Island, and then I was just like, whoa. And then, but now I'm like, whoa. Like he's literally on fire for God, and like he literally comes in and he controls the room, and like he just comes with so much power. Like it's amazing, man.
So good, such a good set. One more person I want to throw out there for you guys to break down a little bit. Not an open micer, but was on the lineup as our second incognito feature right before halftime. Our very own right poet, Mr. AVG. What do you guys remember about AVG's set?
Bodied that drum. He literally, like, it's almost like he steps into character. Like, every piece that he does, he literally steps into character.
Oh, he 100% does.
And I'm just like, it makes you feel like you're in the moment. And if you kind of like, I did this one time, like when he was doing his piece, like I closed my eyes and like I literally envisioned like almost like an imagery of what he was talking about. And like it literally almost brought me to like so much emotion. And I'm just like, this dude is crazy. Like, yeah.
It's like when you're a kid watching a TV show, like maybe like Sesame Street or like Reading Rainbow or something. You're looking at the screen and all you hear is a narrator, and then like all of a sudden like everything's being painted on the screen of what's going on with the narrator, like him telling the story.
Yep.
Yeah. With AVG, it's always funny watching him. Like it's about to go down and it's about to be a really good set when he goes up there, stands at the mic, closes his eyes, puts his head down. And then he just opens his eyes and looks up and slowly raises his head.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not Gabriel anymore. That's AVG.
AVG is a beast of a poet. He's been on a legendary run.
Yes. In the past 6 months.
Yeah, in the past, I was going to say the past year, since the beginning of 2024. He's probably done the most shows out of anybody in our community this year. Just getting features kind of in and out of state, up and down kind of the East Coast, and just doing amazing things as a writer, as an author, as a performer, selling books, all that kind of stuff. So shout out to AVG. He's one of the legends. And his set was super like potent. Mm-hmm. And I think like I felt like it was a plumb line for the night. When we're in a new space, we're at Bedrock, Pastor Drew's like, how's this going to go, right? We're like, I don't know. I hope it goes well. To have AVG there is kind of like a safety net at the halfway point to know, like, we know the next 10 minutes with AVG's set is going to be so potent and powerful that the folks from Bedrock are going to be like, oh, yeah, this is a legit thing. No matter what any of the other artists did. Now, granted, we had a lot of great artists that night perform, but I knew AVG was going to be like a bar none kind of moment. So shout out to AVG.
Pulled no punches.
Never. Getting to the end of the event, why we're really here is to talk to this man, Mr. El-Fatih Chase.
Hello, hi.
El-Fatih, the one and only.
Yes, sir.
Closing incognito feature at Creatives Cafe on November 12th, 2024. El, talk to us about your set, man.
When I tell you, I was so nervous. I was so nervous. It was a point where Scott looked at me. He's just like, stop looking over your music. You're going to do fine. And like, it wasn't my first time performing that song, by the way. But for some reason, I think just because of how well the event was going, it made me nervous because I'm like, I'm the ending part of this, and like it has to kind of be with a bang. So it was an amazing experience. Like I had a lot of people come out and support me that I didn't know were coming. But just to kind of go and release my song in that specific atmosphere, and just to see how people received it, and even just with kind of sharing what my recent events were during that time, like, you know, with the passing of my grandmother, and how like that song kind of just matched what I was going through at the time. And people were coming up to me afterwards and were just like, yo, like, that's crazy that you said that. Like, my grandmother passed today. I was like, what the heck? And kind of just kind of ministering the song and just like the words that it meant, and kind of just releasing that and kind of also doing a cover. It was just cool. It was an amazing experience, and yeah, it felt kind of good just to get it done, but like just to hear the like reactions and like the feedback from people, it made me feel good about, like, you know, the song.
Shout out to your keys player as well. What was his name again?
Nas, my boy Nas.
Yeah, shout out to Nas, man. He killed it on his stuff up there.
Oh yeah, Nas. He was also, me and him were both nervous, and we practiced like 2 times. But yeah, he did an amazing job.
Yeah, Nas rolling with the punches, man. I know it can always be like tough walking into a space that's not like designed for your set.
Out of his comfort zone too.
Oh really?
I'm gonna be very honest. Like, out of his comfort zone. Like, you know, like he plays at like it's like a Pentecostal church, so like the atmosphere was different. Like, he's never really been to an open mic like that before. But he really, really enjoyed himself, and I think it was really good for him to kind of get out of that box and to be in another like setting.
That's what's up. Yeah, hope to see Nas again. I was just gonna give him kudos for, you know, more even on the technical standpoint, like playing on somebody else's keyboard, right? Playing in a space that's not, you know, set up just for your set, because it was an open mic for the whole night. You know, we're always switching out musicians and different people are playing and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was amazing for him to be able to just step right in, be able to be ready to go. As soon as we handed the mic to you, like Nas was behind you and you were into your first song. It seemed seamless. It was so unique for creatives, because we don't usually center on worship as an artistry moment at creatives. We usually center on more kingdom art that's not as overtly Christian, but is like a bridge builder to Christian, right? Yeah. But we really felt like this was so important to center, like our first event at Bedrock. Let's make sure we get to the King of Kings. Like, let's make sure we get to a worshipful moment, not just for the artist, but for the room. And everybody went with you, man.
Yeah, I was going to say there were even some, I don't know if everybody, of course everyone in there wasn't like a believer, but there were some people that were coming up to me, and like 100% like you could tell like they weren't believers. But like they were just like, man, like, I don't know what that was or when you wrote that song, but like that was amazing. And yeah, it was like the way that people responded really surprised me. Because sometimes like when you've been operating like in your gift or like singing or your talent for so long, sometimes you can forget the value that it holds. And so it was like that moment and that night really reminded me, bro, your gift has value. Like, and you need to remember that and like never let go of that, because again, you can get used to it. So when you have people giving you like words of affirmation and how well you did and how like the Lord really used you and that moment was impactful, like it's just a good reminder, and I'll always remember that.
Amen, bro. Yeah, I think for me it was I always trust that the Lord is speaking, you know, like when we make decisions, and you know, if we make a bad decision, I'll just, you know, chalk it up to I didn't hear well. Right? It's not God's fault, it's my fault. But even when we like make mistakes, God is sovereign. I've seen that over and over and over again. But there was no mistake in asking you to do this, right? And the biggest thing, like I said, you know, on the Bedrock front, wanting to make sure that we landed with worship. But the real reason why I asked you in particular, because we could ask anybody to lead worship at the end of the night who's a worship artist. There's a bunch of them in our city.
Yeah.
But it was the, like, don't sit on your gift, you know? Like, that was the phrase that I kept hearing for you, was that hopefully the night would speak that to you. Because one thing for somebody to tell you, don't sit on your gift, El. You got a gift, don't forget. It's another thing for randos to tell you that are hearing you for the first time ever, right? And they're reminding you of, oh, you're not just saying this because you're my friend. You're saying this because you were impacted by the gift, that the gift matters, right? So even just hearing you say that, like, is such a breath of fresh air to my soul, because that was the heart. Like, I knew you had been going through stuff. I knew you had been walking through some heaviness with your family, as you alluded to, right? And it's like, I wanted you to have a moment that you could hold on to be reminded of, man, God has given me so much to steward. And even if it's not right now in this moment of like grief, like that I'm going to be doing this day in and day out as an artist tomorrow, that you would be reminded of what you do carry. Yeah. And that it's not just for the garbage, it's not just for the couch, it's not just for you and yourself at home. There's a gift that God's given you for you to share with the world, you know?
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of like struck me, and this is not the first time this happened, but another thing that really struck me was like people were like, oh, like, what's your name on Apple Music? What's your name on Spotify? And it was just like, there's not going to be anything up there. You probably can follow me. We can share music together. But as far as like my own personal music, like, I don't really have anything. They're like, what? What do you mean you don't have anything? I'm like, I know. So like that prompting, like it pushes me. And like, I'm grateful for that, because being very transparent, I'm a person that will stay comfortable and like, just like, okay, I did this. I'm going back to being like an introverted person. Surprisingly, I actually do have my introverted ways, but yeah, like sometimes, like if it's too much out of my comfort zone, because again, never released music before, like on platforms and stuff like that. I've written and whatever, but like that's like a whole nother step for me. And that's, you know, it's kind of weird and stressful, and I don't want to stress about anything else, but my guy Jarrett here is going to be helping me soon.
Oh,
the process.
Oh, you guys are sharing news here.
We've already had this conversation. He's come to the studio. We've had a meeting. Everything.
Amen.
Yeah, so we're gonna be working on it. And I definitely, this whole experience like was like an accountability step. Like, yo, you got to get on your game, man. Like the world is looking for you.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask about outcomes and impact from the show, but man, that's 1A right there, is that you actually set up a meeting with Jarrett to get in the studio.
That's the biggest step, to be honest.
100%. That's a huge step.
Faith without works is dead.
I mean, it's funny because that a year ago, just because of your and Mike and Olivia's relationship, right? To just put things in perspective, a year ago, Liv was doing an open mic as an incognito feature at Venice Island. And then a year later, she gets asked for the concert. And in conjunction with the ask for the concert, which if we already released this episode, you know, she releases her first single. And now she is a recording artist, right? And it's like, this kind of feels like her a year ago.
No, literally.
Like the incognito feature set happens. And then that's kind of the kick in the butt to start moving forward. And you have no idea where that will take you, you know, as an artist. But yeah, I'm super excited for you, because the other thing that you have that most people don't have, I mean, one, you are extremely gifted, like as a vocalist, as a singer, as a worship leader, the heart, the presence, like you're very, very, you also have access that a lot of people do not have. To like artists in the space as gospel artists that are legitimately like big time influencers as artists in our region, especially. Like you have the ear of those people and they all want to see you succeed and thrive. So it's not just like, oh, okay, I'm going to quietly like release this song. Like people are going to hear about this song because there's a whole lot of people that really believe in you as a gospel worship leader, as a gospel artist, that are going to put this thing in front of a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So you really shouldn't sit on it and waste it, because you got some stuff in your back pocket that is not of your own doing. It's just the Lord's favor on your life. Like you're positioned like really well based upon the connections, relationships, and influence that's seated around you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But no, I was gonna say, like, sometimes like we really can hold like ourselves up. And again, this is kind of going back to what I was talking about, like the whole comfortability thing. Like, I'm about to get really spiritual. But God didn't call us to be comfortable. Like, he called us to move in the uncomfortability. Because, serving him isn't always comfortable. And even when it is a gift that we're really good at, but sometimes, and I would even speak for myself, like sometimes I'm scared to see what it would be like when my name gets out there. Like what will come my way when my name gets out there. And that's kind of always like that back thing in my head. It's just like, well, I see all these other artists out here just kind of putting their name out there, and then like they have these crazy moments. I'm just like I don't want that to be me. Like I just want to be like a local artist, because I know, and this is not me being cocky, like I know that when I release music and really start going, that it's going to pick up on the influence, because like God has called me to do music and stuff like that, and it's going to reach far. But sometimes that's a scary thing, like, because your life is not taken away from you, but like the normal part that you're used to it's not going to be normal anymore. And so, but I have to kind of get rid of that mindset, and I challenge anybody to get rid of that mindset, because then you're just limiting what God wants to do in your life. And, because it's not you necessarily being exposed, but it's the God in you that's being exposed. And that's, you can be limiting the spread of the gospel. So, yeah.
That's good, man. I think one of the things our heart, bleeds for and yearns for is like the community side is how you avoid some of the pitfalls that you're concerned about. Right. Yeah. And I think you probably haven't seen that as much yet, because you've been operating mostly on the worship team as like a member of the worship team, or being in the creatives band, or being on an event band or something like that. But on the artist front, like we have, a couple dozen artists in our community that are front facing. And a big thing that we talk about and harp on a lot is the character and integrity piece, right? Mm-hmm. Like when we look out into the culture, even on the Christian end, sometimes even more so on the Christian end, you see a lot of pitfalls that a lot of these artists fall into. And if you really examine like what's the core issue, it's a lack of accountability and community. Yeah. It's a lack of, like, when they got signed to a label, there isn't really pastorally any type of like check-in on them. They just have to present the X number of albums per the contract, regardless of what they're doing in their personal lives, which is crazy to me.
It's actually really bad.
Like, this is like such a broken model within the Christian music industry. And to me, I'm like, man, what if we created a ministry that's shaped by different values, that's shaped by humility and honor and purity and excellence and family and growth? Like, what if we center on like the things that we see in Jesus, and the things that we see are motifs of his kingdom and what should be the motifs of his church, and we really focus on those things rather than just trying to get things done for the sake of numerical growth, right? Or the sake of an opportunity to get in front of more people or whatever else. And I just want to encourage you, like, you don't have to be afraid of those things that could come, because it's really, God's going to give you grace for it, but you also aren't in it alone. Yeah. Because you literally do have community. in this room, right? With the people that you have grown with. Mike and Liv in particular got your back. And you already know who they are, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it's not about their giftings as bassists and singers, right? Like, I'm saying who they are in their integrity, who they are in terms of what they carry. Nobody's going to leave you out here to dry. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just want to encourage you with that. Like, you don't have to, have that concern and fear of, like, what's going to happen. Yeah. Well, you have friends. Like, we here, you know, you're not alone. So, I don't know if that makes sense. But.
No, yeah, it makes sense because, like, and again, I don't just have friends. Like, I have kingdom friends. Like, I have friends who aren't scared to tell me when I'm doing wrong. Or like, hey, your pride is showing a little bit. Like, you need to reel it back in, get in your word. Like, remember that you're an ambassador and you're not, you know, the main thing, you know. So I definitely have friends who, because Liv and Mike will definitely keep me in check. And even like some people at church, shout out City Reach. I don't think I shouted them out, but I love my church, City Reach. But like definitely like, hey, El, like you did an amazing job. Don't forget God though. Like, you know, because sometimes, you know, your abilities can make you big headed, you know, and you need those people who hold you down.
Facts.
Yeah.
So good, man. Shout out to City Reach.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bedrock. Shout out to everybody who was on the open mic, and shout out to the entire Creatives Philly team, Aunt G for DJing, Esteban for running the band, MDing for the night, Gabi, Jake, and Jason on the band side. Shout out to, you know, the media team taking pictures and videos and social media and all that stuff, the hospitality team. And finally, shout out to Jarrett Moses for doing the thing with the sound to make it sound all crispy and glorious in that room. It's going to be an amazing chapter ahead with Creatives Philly. Ella, I can't wait to see what happens for you in particular as an artist and this journey ahead for you. And I'm sure we will have moments to talk again here on this podcast as opportunities come down the pike for you in due time.
I was going to say the features for the night, it felt like past Creatives MVP, current Creatives MVP, future Creatives MVP.
Yeah. Yeah, between like Caitlin.
Going from Caitlin to Gabe to El.
Yep. The future is bright,
past, present, future.
Eyes have not seen.
Ears have not heard. Yeah, it's going to be great, man.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you guys for tuning in to this podcast. We appreciate you guys so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Be on the lookout for El-Fatih's music. If you don't see it soon, you should be DMing him and complaining to him consistently until he actually releases his first single out into the universe. Be on the lookout for that.
Christ-like accountability.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody needs to send it. Listen, it's going to be great whenever it comes out, and we can't wait to celebrate that together. But if you're here and you partner with us, thank you for partnering with us, because your support is what enables us to do our Creatives events. Our events are never profitable. They are not something that we, are doing to sell tickets to make a bunch of money. They are events that we put on so that stories like this one can be shared. They're an investment of our ministry. And they're ultimately an investment in people like El. And so if you support us, you are in real ways supporting El and other artists like him who have had opportunities to perform and then are pushed and compelled to go actually release their own music into the world, which ultimately makes an impact on even more people. So thank you for supporting us so that we get to do that. If you're here listening to this episode as a friend of El-Fatih's and you're not a partner with Ripe Creatives, please jump on our website, ripecreatives.com, and consider clicking the give button to become a monthly partner with what we do so that we can do more of this stuff in the months and years ahead. El-Fatih, Jarrett, any final thoughts before we officially sign off?
Like I said, Bedrock felt like we were home, felt like we were back, and I still hold to that.
Yeah. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for coming on, bro.
Absolutely.
Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. And until next time, stay right.
He gon' ride with me, I ain't gon' fall. God got me, he gon' ride with me, I ain't gon' fall. God got me, he gon' ride with me, I ain't gon' fall. Cold memories turn to gold memories. cold memories turn to gold memories.